Hey, how's it going? Welcome to another MLittleProgramming tutorial. In today's video, we will be looking at Python inheritance. We'll be looking at what inheritance is, how to define a superclass-subclass relationship, and what we can do inside a subclass. In the last video of this Python for Beginners series, we looked at classes in Python and how to create objects and instances of classes in Python. We also went through a summary of what a class is in programming. In that part of the video, we found that classes can have a hierarchy, often with a superclass and subclasses of that superclass. Subclasses inherited certain aspects of the superclass, or subclasses can inherit properties from the superclass in a process called inheritance. In today's video, we will look at inheritance in Python and go through how to define subclasses and superclasses in Python. I will link to the video on Python classes in the top right now. This is the code we wrote in that last video. It is based around the idea of a vehicle. Every vehicle has a name, a fuel capacity, and a current fuel level. And this was just a basic outline of a vehicle. We can of course add more properties to this vehicle. We know that a vehicle is the name for any object that can move. And so a vehicle can, for example, be a car, a bicycle, a van, or a lorry, just to name a few. Those examples I just listed could be subclasses of the vehicle superclass. So how do we create a subclass? Well, firstly, we just come in and define another class. We're going to define a car class. So how do we create a subclass of vehicle? Well, let's say we wanted to create a car class. We simply create another class and call it car. And we need to pass in our vehicle. So now car inherits all the properties of vehicle. Right now, we will just make this class passable. So we will write the keyword pass so that this syntax is valid. We can now create an instance of the car class. We will call this instance car1, and we need to pass in all of the properties that vehicle requires. So the name of our car will just be a brand name, the fuel capacity will be 10, and the fuel level will be 10. We can now call methods from the vehicle class on our car instance. So we can ask if the fuel tank is full by calling fuel tank full on our car1 class. And we see here that vehicle is full is printed. We can also add the init function to our car class like we do in the superclass. We do this in exactly the same way, and we pass in self. Inside this init class, we can add properties to the car subclass that we may not want to add to the vehicle class. So for example, a vehicle could include a boat, and a boat doesn't have wheels. But we know every car has a wheel. So we can say self.wheel equals wheel, and we'll pass that value into the class every time we initialize it as an instance of the car class. If we were to run this now, we get an error. This is because we get a type error, which says that init takes 2 positional arguments, but 4 were given. Now the reason for this is because we've passed in 3 arguments here, and it includes the self property as an argument, so that's 4. But it was only expecting self and wheels. And now the reason for this is because we've actually overwritten the vehicle init class. So before, when we were defining an instance of our class, we didn't have an init in our car class. And so we were just using the vehicle init class, which takes name, fuel capacity, and fuel level. So to make this instance of a class valid, we just need to pass in the number of wheels we have, which is 4. And now we can ask for the amount of wheels a car has by saying car1.wheels. So how do we get class to inherit the properties of vehicle so that we can give our class a name, a fuel capacity, and a fuel level? Well, we need to take the vehicle that we pass in to our car class and call the init function on it. Now in the init function, we need to pass in the same properties as the vehicle init class requires. So that is self, name, fuel capacity, and fuel level. And of course, that means we need to add them as parameters to our init function. And so when we create an instance of car, we now have to pass in the number of wheels, which is 4, followed by a name, so we can say a brand, and a fuel capacity of 10, and a fuel level of 10. And so now we can print the name of our car. And that is a brand. Python also has the super function. The super function will make a child class inherit all of the methods and properties from its parent without explicitly naming its parent. This makes class inheritance more manageable and extensible. The function returns a temporary object that allows reference to a parent's class, and this has two major use cases. To avoid the usage of the super parent class explicitly, so in our case we wouldn't need to keep using the word vehicle to ask for the vehicle superclass. And it also makes it easier to have multiple inheritances. To use the super function, we simply replace vehicle with the super function and remove the call to self. And this then has the same functionality as we had before, with the vehicle being called explicitly. In subclasses, in the same way as in superclasses, we can add methods to a class. So we may want our class to be able to print how many wheels it has. So we can just define a class called number of wheels, and we can just return a string concatenation of I have and then the number of wheels, which we can find on our self property, wheels, and then the word wheels. And then we just need to call that function on our car1 property. And so when we run that, it says I have 4 wheels. As number of wheels is a method defined on the car subclass, it isn't available on the superclass, so in our case, vehicle. This means that if we were to create a vehicle instance and pass in a name, the fuel level, and the fuel capacity, if we were to try and call number of wheels on our vehicle1 instance, when we run this, we see that the vehicle has no attribute number of wheels. And so this function isn't in scope for vehicle. Thank you for watching the video this far. I hope you got a lot of value from it. If you'd like to see more Python programming tutorials, there will be a link in the description down below to a playlist of Python programming tutorials. With that said, if you like the video, if you could drop a like on the video, it would be much appreciated, as it really helps the channel, and subscribe to see new Python programming tutorials every week. Also, if you've got any questions about the video, drop a comment down below and I'll get back to you. Have a great day.